Now, in Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 2, we have a unique prophecy referring to the shepherds of Israel. Now, this is a dual meaning. It's referring to political leaders, being the shepherds, not feeding the sheep of the congregation. They're feeding themselves. Okay, so that's a political corruption. But this same prophecy can be integrated into ministry leaders, and I can encapsulate it by just referring to the word prosperity doctrine, and I don't need to say any more. You can Google what that means. I'm not accusing anybody of being in that, but I know that it is going around, and this prophecy, it lines up with that situation. So that is another roadblock we face. Now, if you haven't read the book of Ezekiel, I would encourage anybody watching this video to read from this chapter on to the rest of the book, because it's all prophetic and it refers to the Messiah, the second coming, and the New Jerusalem, and it also parallels the book of Revelation. So I recommend people go and read that and study it. Now, we've also got personal stumbling blocks that prevent miracles and provision. Obviously, people receive the gospel by faith, and at that point they are born again, but if you continue in willful sin, your prayers are going to be hindered. In some situations, now of course, in other situations, your prayers could be answered, you could get a miracle, you could have a complete breakthrough. It's a very individual, personal experience. So everything is different. But if you continue in willful sin as a Christian, it's not going to go well for you. Also, false doctrines and teachings. You really got to study the Bible. Now, there's always going to be different interpretations on this and that, but focus with things that aren't prophetically based, like end times and etc. Focus more on the important matters. Don't argue about prophecy, things like that, because we ultimately don't know exactly how certain things will play out. But what matters is a good understanding of what it means to be born again and how we should live for the fruit of the Spirit. You've got to get that down intact, because ultimately that is what the Lord's going to judge you on, is how you live from the moment you accept faith. That is when He'll start looking at your life from then on to see how much you grow. See, if you do nothing, now there's heaps of parables on, once you receive that seed, if you do nothing to harvest yourself or water yourself or grow yourself, it's unpleasing. You will be considered least in the kingdom. Now, you might get over the line, or you may not get over the line. There's the lesson on the being lukewarm. They get rejected. Jesus says, I'll reject you if you are lukewarm. That means if you're not surrendering and giving away your selfishness or your addictions to sin, if you're not surrendering and repenting from that from the moment you are saved, you'll be judged as someone who is lukewarm. But again, it's a unique situation, because if you receive the gospel for the first time and you die 2 days later, like the thief on the cross, the Messiah said, I will remember you, today you will be with me in paradise. So this thief on the cross, he didn't have time to repent, but because he had faith, the Messiah effectively perfected his works straight away. But when you have time in your life, that is when he will actually look and monitor and judge you based on what you do. You know, this is a huge problem. You can't just continue in sin. You can't be a fence sitter. And also, you got to get your priorities right. You can't pray like a selfish, needy, materialistic Gentile. And there's examples of how the Gentiles live. Basically, a Gentile prayer is me, 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 or why haven't you, why haven't you, why haven't you, why haven't you, blah, blah, blah. That's a Gentile prayer, okay? An example of a good prayer would be to pray for other people, not just yourself. Pray for understanding. Pray for forgiveness. Pray for strength. Pray for everything else that is not centered on me, me, me.